to repair a loose dining room chair. I have these gorgeous chairs that have been in the family for a long time, and they've gotten really, really wiggly. I don't know if you can see that, but the whole thing is very loose, and where I have small children, I don't really feel comfortable with them sitting on them. So this is just a quick way to fix them. It only takes a few minutes, and in this video, I consider myself to be a pretty handy person, but there are a lot of tools, specialty tools for jobs like this that a lot of people might not have. So I'm going to show you how to do this with just things you might have around the house. If you have like just a regular toolkit and you want to do a job like this, it's not impossible. It's actually very doable. So you don't need very many things to do this project. What you do need is a rubber mallet, which I don't have. So instead of using a rubber mallet, you can use a regular hammer. But what you're going to want to do is take just a random piece of wood and a towel. And what you're going to do is you're going to wrap that wood in your towel. And when you do any hammering, you're going to be hammering with your hammer against this with the chair on the other side of it, so that this will protect your chair from any marks that the hammer might make. Then all you're going to need is some wood glue, a screwdriver. So these supports will be screwed in. There's 2 screws for each piece. A screw that goes in here that holds the top on the seat. So check your screws ahead of time. See what kind of head you're going to need. My screws have a square slot in them, so I'm using a Robertson screwdriver with a square tip. The last thing I'm going to use, I don't have any specialty clamps here. A lot of people that do this professionally will have a giant clamp that goes from the front of the chair to the back of the chair. I don't, so I'm just using one of these tie downs for the back of a truck. And it'll work just as well, and I can actually, instead of having to do a clamp on all the sides, I can just use one of those, wrap it around, and pull all the joints in tight at once. Now we're ready to start working on our chair. For the first step, what you're going to need is your screwdriver, and if you like, a container for holding your screws. We're going to tip this chair over. I like to do it so it's laying on its back. And we're going to start taking out the screws from the supports. Now first I'm going to take out the screws here that hold on the top, and the top will just pop right off. If your chair doesn't have screws holding the top, then that's fine too. Do the supports first. So for me, I'm not going to take the whole support right off. I'm going to just take off the screw on the fronts of the chair and the backs of the chairs. I'm going to leave the side screws, and that way I'll know where the pieces fit. They'll still be perfectly in the right spot, and I won't have to worry about losing more pieces or anything like that. So here we go. First, the seat. If you have kids that like to help out during fix-it jobs, this is a great part for the kids to help with. If you loosen the screws a little, then they can take them out the rest of the way and put them in containers for you, and they can feel important, and it's not something that they can mess up. They can't hurt your furniture doing this. And the last one, and you'll see how easily the top pops off. Okay, so those are the 4 screws that come off the top, and that's it. It's free. You set that aside, and the bottom is now ready to have you take out these screws. If you want to do a more thorough job, you can fully take these off and glue these joints as well. On this particular chair, these joints were never glued. They were just screwed on, and I don't want to mess with that, so I'm just going to put it back the way it was. Okay, so just to speed things up a little, I have removed those 4 screws now. So now we're ready to start taking apart our chair. We're not going to take the whole thing apart, but we are going to check out where the dowels are loose. So now that those supports are out, I can see, and I don't know if you can on the film, but there are places where the joints are, where you can actually see the dowels sticking out. Dowels are little pieces of wood. They're round, and they're used to hold together pieces of wooden furniture. So what they'll do is they'll drill a hole the size of the dowel, and then glue and put the dowel in, and that'll hold both sides of the wood. So that's how these chairs are put together. So what we want to do is, this joint is already far enough apart, and this one's coming apart, I can see. Actually, this whole chair. This joint right here looks like there's no gap, so I'm going to leave that one alone. If it's still strong, it's fine. The rest of them though, all of them need to be done. So we're going to use our hammer and our piece of wood and our towel, or if you have a rubber mallet, just use that. You don't need to use the towel or the piece of wood if you have a rubber mallet. So you just want to create enough of a gap to get the glue inside. I'm going to brace the back of the chair with my leg here to keep it from moving. And I'm just going to give this a little tap on the inside. It's all done. Now, I just want to show you what the gaps look like. So I've got a fairly sizable gap there. It's not quite the width of a finger, about half a width apart. Like I said, you want to get the glue in there. So all of my joints here have been separated. You can see the dowels there, those little light colored pieces of wood. So now you're ready to do your gluing. One thing I did forget to mention that you will need is a damp cloth. This is just to catch the glue. When you put the glue in these joints, and especially when you bring them together with your clamps or your ratchet strap, whatever you're going to use, the glue will start dripping down the legs, and you do want to get that off before it dries. You do have enough time to work and get everything in place and get everything tight before you need to start wiping up, but it does help to wipe up as you're going along. So damp cloth and your glue. And all you're going to do is you're going to put the tip of your glue in a crack and squeeze out just enough that it'll hit the dowel and kind of go down around the dowel. And then there's two dowels here, so I'm going to do one from the top to hit the top dowel, and then I'm also going to squeeze some in at the side to get that second dowel underneath. When that glue is in, then I can bring my joint back together. I'll do a little hammering again with my wood and my cloth, my towel around it, so I protect my chair. And then when the chair is back together, I'm ready to put on my clamp. Here we go. Okay, so I'm just going to show you here putting in the first dollop of glue. So I'm just going to put it right here above the dowel and just give it a squeeze. There we go. And as you can see, it's starting to run down, and that's exactly what I want. Now I'm going to move to the side. So you can see it running down in there over the dowel. That's perfect. And I'm going to do the second dowel down at the bottom here. There we go. I'll show you the rest of the chair from afar. I don't know if you can see or not, but here the glue's starting to drip down. So I'm just going to take my damp cloth and wipe from the bottom up towards the crack. And there you go. It comes off very easily. When you set this down again on your floor, you might want to turn it inside the cloth so it doesn't glue your floor. And we're going to do the rest of the dowels now. All my dowels are covered up. If you are going to glue your supports inside the chair, as I explained, mine never were, so I'm going to leave it, but a lot of chairs have been, and it's fine. Now would be a good time to put the glue in there as well. Again, you don't need a lot, you just need enough that it'll secure together and allow you to screw it back together. So one last thing I'm going to do, I'm going to take my wet cloth, my damp cloth, not wet. You don't want it so damp that when you squeeze it to push up on the glue that it's going to have water run down. That'll just liquefy the glue and it'll stain your chair. You do want it damp though so that the glue wipes off easily. So I'm just going to go around and wipe off anywhere where the glue has come down. And I'll just keep turning my cloth to the inside. I get my hammer and my piece of wood still in the towel. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my knee to brace behind the chair so that when I hammer this way, then the joints can come back together. If I don't put anything behind it, or myself, or have somebody hold it, then when I hit this, the whole chair is just going to be backwards. It's not going to have that big of an effect. So, and that joint's back together. Lovely. So now you can see my joints are pretty tight back together. You don't see the glue, but if it does drip down, that's what you need to address. Okay, so now we're ready to attach our ratchet strap. So I have my strap at almost the right size for the chair. So I've got my 2 hooks. I'm going to make sure that my tightener goes on the back of the chair. And I'm just going to bring it around the 4 joints and clip it together. Kind of position it halfway where the wood is, then it's a good height to hold the top and bottom dowel together at the same time. Now that it's getting snug, I'm just going to double check where it's sitting against my chair again. And I'm ready to do the final tighten. There. And now it's ready to dry. This is a good time for you to take your wet rag and just go over again to see if there's any glue dripping down. So now we're ready to let this sit. You should let the glue sit for at least an hour to cure. I actually prefer to leave mine overnight all clamped up, and that just makes sure. So I would give it 24 hours before you go ahead and take the clamps off. To store my chair, oh, I have a helper. This is Bonesy. If you're interested, you can visit her blog. She's my parkour kitty. In any case, Bonesy, I don't need your help right now, honey. I was just going to say, if you would like to store your screws and the rest of your table so that you know it will be safe, then what you can do, I've double checked that there's no glue on the top of my joints. It's completely dry. And I'm just going to set my seat back on top. I'm not going to secure it. It's just going to sit there. And my container of screws that go with this particular chair, I'm just going to seal them, put it on top, and tomorrow I know which screws went with which chair and which top. I have a set of 6 chairs with this table, and I'm redoing them all. So this way I'll know what parts go with which chair and everything will fit beautifully. Alright, so it's been 24 hours. This is a chair I actually did yesterday, so it's been sitting for 24 hours. It's ready to go back together now. So what we're going to do is we've got our screws, we have our top of our chair here, we know where it's going. Right, so we're going to go ahead and take off our clamp. We'll just loosen it at the back here and it'll fall right off, and we'll show you how sturdy this chair is now. Here we go. And now we're ready to put our support screws back in our top. And I don't know if you could tell or not, but this is way sturdier than it was the other day. We'll lay down our chair and put our support screws in first. You'll notice that there are 2 different lengths of screws. The short ones are your support screws. The long ones are for reattaching your seat. Our 4 support screws are in, and we're ready to put the top back on. I can see where the holes are. I'm going to thread it into my bottom support there. And when it comes out the top, I can see that it's going in the right hole. Okay, I've done the top 2 screws. You'll notice that when you're screwing it in, it'll get to the point where it goes in the same hole, and then it'll just be super easy to screw in, and you'll feel the top coming back to meet the chair as the screw pulls it in. Just got the bottom ones to do now. And the last one. So as you can see, this doesn't take very long at all. And our chair is done. So we have a beautiful chair again. It's all back together, fits perfectly, no wobble whatsoever. It's fantastic. I have no problems at all letting my kids sit on this, and this chair is going to give me another 10, 20, 50 years to go. So you too can do easy fix-its around the house with no special tools. Thanks for joining me. Till next time.